Hi, this is Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. It is always a fantastic way to communicate directly with folks. Often it's a one-way communication, however. Today we've tried to, using technology, make it a two-way communication. And so there's going to be an opportunity for you to reach out with questions. There is a chance that communicated to you already for you to reach out to us with written questions, some of which have already started to come in. You have the ability to send those questions, and we're going to show them on this screen to my left. And when those come in, we'll take them directly. We're going to talk about several things during the course of the next 20-30 minutes. We're going to talk about things like the opioid crisis. We're going to talk about adoption and foster care specifically. These are two issues where they are at crisis level in our state. We have thousands, 8,000 plus young children in our foster care system. Last year, although more than 1,000 were adopted, there are still thousands waiting in queue wanting to be adopted, possibly able to be adopted, looking for homes. Some of them may be from those of you that are watching this video stream right now. The opioid crisis is destroying America. We know it. We haven't even begun to hit the crest of this wave, I'm afraid. And 129 people every day in America overdose. That is catastrophic. That's like a plane going down every day, and that's happening every day, day in and day out. More than 1,300 Kentuckians last year overdosed on drugs. These are things that I want to talk about. We're going to take your questions. I'm going to look over here to my side and take the first one. Keep them coming as we go. The first question from Jason Hart: how can we better walk alongside parents who have had their children removed to help break the cycle? Boy, that is the crux of this whole issue. It really is. How to better walk alongside the parents. One of the things that we always assume, too often assume, is that the best place for the child to go back to is the biological situation they came from. I hate to say it, but truth be told, that won't always be the case. The reality is sometimes those parents need us to come alongside them. They need us to come alongside and educate them. Some of those parents just need a little help. Some want to get their children back again. Some don't necessarily want to be engaged. But we as a state have a responsibility to educate, to come alongside, to reconnect families where there is good effort on both sides to make that happen. The one thing I want to make very clear, though, not only to those that are watching this, not only to those that are affected by this in their families, but to those in our judiciary as well, is that we must put the interest of the child above all else, above the parents, above the state, above everything. The child has got to come first. The next question we have from Angela Dawn Curtis: how are you going to stop this epidemic without causing problems, without tying doctors' hands, and without causing problems with those who have acute pain? This is a question related to the opioid crisis. How will we solve this, stop this epidemic? It's many parts. There is not enough money. There are not enough programs at the bottom of the funnel, rehab and others. If we simply try to fix the problem when we are actually at the bottom of the funnel, we've got to close the funnel of addiction at the top, make it smaller and smaller. That's what we need to work on closing, not simply trying to deal with people at the bottom of the funnel. And so how are we going to stop this without curtailing people's ability to get access to pain medicine? I want to make a couple things very clear to people. Number one, 80% of the people who are addicted to heroin, 80% of them started abusing prescription drugs first, opioid pills first. 80%. 85% of all the opioids that are prescribed in the world are prescribed in the United States. Last year in Kentucky, 359 million doses of opioids were prescribed to 4.4 million people. That's 79 pills for every single man, woman, and child in Kentucky. I know there's pain. There's clearly pain. People who have chronic pain that has been clearly diagnosed, people who have cancer, people that are perhaps home on hospice care. But I'll tell you, we're not in that much pain. And we've got to be very, very, very careful about how we're going to curtail the number of people that are falling into that funnel. And among other things, we need to make sure that the PDMPs, the prescription drug monitoring programs that are in place, like Casper, are fully utilized, that we put all information and data in there so that people can't shop around. We also need to make sure that emergency rooms that are treating people for overdose are actually putting information in there. so that somebody knows this person has a chronic history of abuse of opioids. We also have recently passed legislation in House Bill 333 that will limit the actual number of pills that people are able to take home with them from the hospital to 3 days, other than for those instances we talked about earlier. Doctors still have a tremendous amount of latitude. Do understand that. Doctors have a tremendous amount of latitude. But this is now requiring them to think a little more than perhaps they have in the past about how much is enough. I had an instance where I dislocated a shoulder a couple of years ago. I went to the emergency room. I was asked if I wanted I was actually not asked. I was told, here's a prescription, you can get this filled. We'll fill it for you right here at the hospital. I said, I don't need these, I don't want them. They said, no, we're going to give it to you, you'll want them. I said, really, I'm okay. I'm in pain, but I'll be in less pain with each hour. I'm willing to just go without. I'd rather not take them. The third time, the doctor, an emergency room doctor, who I believe was well-intentioned, came back to me and said, trust me, you want these. This is the good stuff. That's part of our problem. We need better education, not only of the people receiving the drugs, but frankly, the people prescribing them as well. And that's another thing. It comes back to educating our doctors, not only while they're in medical school, but afterwards. Not only while they're doing rotations in oncology and labor and delivery in the emergency room, but they should be doing rotations through drug rehabilitation centers. These are the types of things, as it will relate to tying that to licensing in the state of Kentucky, that together, no one of them being perfect, all of them together not being perfect, but each one of these pieces are how we will stop this epidemic. The next question is from Michael Frazier, who asks, what are you proposing to help children who have parents, and oftentimes their only parent, in custody as a result of the opioid epidemic? Boy, that is literally where these two issues we're talking about come together. It's where the opioid crisis and the child welfare situation come head to head. What are we doing? We're working on ways that we can come alongside the parents in prison, but also the child. Again, my focus is on the child above all else. We want to help the parent. We do. We absolutely need to help them. And we are putting programs in place in our prisons, whether it's a single parent or both parents, which is sometimes the case that are in prison, to make sure those parents don't fall into this rat wheel of recidivism. We have 45% of the people who come out of our prisons, and last year we had over 18,500 people come out of prison in Kentucky. 45% of them plus go right back in within a very short period of time, typically within a matter of weeks or months. We've got to shrink that recidivism rate. We also have to be mindful of the fact that 98% of all the people in prison in Kentucky, and we have sadly too high a percentage of our population incarcerated, for a variety of reasons, but 98% of them are going to get out. 98% of them are returning back into society. What are we doing to make sure they're ready? That they're ready not only to come out to be stable for themselves, but to be the parent to the question that was asked, to be a constructive, contributing member of society, somebody who is able to work and hold down a job and pay their bills and give back and volunteer and be a parent. We've got to start being serious about the programs we offer people both inside and outside of the penal system. We are now doing more training inside, creating a Justice to Journeyman program, creating training opportunities, not only in our traditional prisons, but also in our juvenile detention centers. These are things that actually are going to help to start to address this problem. But the child must always come first. The next question is from Sophia Brumbelow, who asks, what about the grandparents that are raising their grandkids to keep them out of foster care? This is a huge issue. In some of our eastern counties, it's almost a given. In some of our urban cores, it's almost a given. That a grandmother, it's not even usually grandparents. Interestingly, in the inner city, it's more grandmothers. In some of our eastern counties, it is often grandparents. But you have a generation that is raising their children's children. The most heartbreaking thing to me is that, and we're seeing this the most in some of our eastern counties, that we're now seeing those grandparents raising their grandchildren's children. We've now lost 2 generations. We cannot afford to lose 2 generations or we will lose this battle. So what can we do for them? I'm calling on those of you that are watching this and those of you that will watch this afterwards. Come alongside these folks. If you're part of a faith-based community or a nonprofit in the community that cares about the community and says you're for trying to make your community a better one, find the grandparents. Come alongside them, bring them a meal, offer to come by and watch the kids so they can get a break, so they can go out and actually have a date perhaps of their own to go do something, and being relieved of that responsibility of raising young children after they've already raised their children. There is so much we can do as Kentuckians. The idea that there's a government program that's going to fix all this, or that somebody somewhere is going to write a check and it's going to all go away, is nonsense. It requires all of us. You've heard me talk time and time again about Kentuckians becoming the best version of ourselves. It starts with each of us individually. What are you doing? What am I doing? What is every one of us doing every single day to reach out to our fellow man, our neighbor, the men and women around us, the people we walk past every single day, the people down the street, the people across the street, the people upstairs, the people downstairs? What are you doing to help those grandparents raise those grandchildren? Because it is every one of our responsibility. It's not lost on me, however, that the state has a responsibility as well. And we are doing everything within our power to make sure that we come alongside those individuals who, as adults, have a willingness and an ability to raise these children in the best way possible. Because again, it's all about the children first. The next question is from Jeff Mills. We're a family with 4 biological children. We would love to adopt 4 more from foster care. There is currently a 5-child limit. Trust me, I sadly know about that. This severely limits good families from taking on more children. Can you please fix this unnecessary rule? Yes, we will work on it. I can't promise you it's going to be done tomorrow, but that affected me very personally. It's part of why I ran for governor. My wife and I had 5 biological children. For more than a year, we went through the process, parenting classes, getting fingerprinted, having people inspect our home, having people interview us, having people interview our children, getting fingerprinted again, having more inspections, getting more classes, more paperwork, all the financials, getting fingerprinted again. Only then, after a year, did someone tell us about the 5-child limit. The irony was this: at the time, they were willing to let us adopt a special needs child or one with some severe developmental issues, but they weren't willing to let us adopt a healthy child. They didn't feel that child would get enough attention as the 6th child in a family. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. For those of you who are the parents of 4 children, or even 1 or 2 or 3, you know how to be a parent. There is no perfect parent. But the idea that you need to be taught how to be a parent, and the fact that you've got to take those classes together, that you can't do them separately, or that you can't do some of these things online, we want to streamline this process, simplify this process, and make it easier for the thousands of children currently in out-of-home care in Kentucky to get the care they need and deserve. That's what we're working on, and you can bet I'm working on that rule. From Mavis Poe Clemens, I think that the epidemic of babies born addicted to drugs needs to be addressed. And as a new foster parent, I have seen the withdrawal from drugs, and the parents need to be held responsible and educated about what really happens to these babies. That's absolutely correct. There's a medical term for this called the Neonatal Abstinence Syndrome, NAS, where these children who are born to a drug-addicted parent are born with drug addiction of their own. It's heartbreaking. Many years ago, more than 20 years ago, my wife worked in a labor and delivery unit in a small rural hospital where there were, even then, 2 decades ago, far too many children being born to drug-addicted parents. It wasn't heroin then, it was other drugs. But the reality is these children suffer a horrific, horrific consequence. They pay a tremendous price because of the lack of responsibility on the part of the parents. The parents do need to be held to account. And there are things that we are working on to make sure that they are. But part of it is, to your point, we've got to educate people. Some people don't care. That's the sad, harsh reality, but some do. And those that do need to make sure that we are putting in front of them a full understanding and awareness of what they are doing to their child. And so we are working on ways that we can accomplish what is best for all concerned by keeping the child's interest first above all else. And thank you, by the way, for being an adoptive parent. And thank you for somebody who's taken in, I should say, a foster child who is suffering from recovery from drug addiction through no fault of their own from the moment they were born. It takes a special person to do that. I hope there's a lot of you that are out there watching this or will watch this who are willing to think about doing the same. Because children just need some love. They need someone exactly like you. this is the last one. We'll do more of these. I hope this is helpful to you. We'll do more of these things. The last question we're going to be able to do now, given the time frame we have, is from Myria Gale Snyder, who asks, how do you perceive that Dan Dumas' new role as foster care adoption czar will help overturn or repair the broken system that Kentucky is dealing with currently? This is what I believe will happen. First of all, we are very fortunate to be able to get somebody like Dan Dumas to actually take on this responsibility. There's been much hubbub about how much he's being paid. He's not an employee. He doesn't get any benefits. He was given a one-year contract. Out of the sum of money that he's getting for that 1 year, he'll pay his own salary. He'll have to pay anybody that he hires to help him with the work that he's doing. He has to pay for all of his coming and going and responsibility for his own expenses. And he's making a whole lot less money than he was making in his previous role. He's a guy who's been knocked by a whole lot of folks for the fact that, what does he know about this situation? He doesn't have any information. The number of reporters who have intentionally misled people, straight up lied to people about his qualifications because they don't want them to know, is shameful, frankly. Dan Dumas has written a book on adoption. He is an adoptive parent of 2 children. He is a guy who has started one of the most well-known adoption foundations with Stephen Curtis Chapman, dedicated to adoption. He co-founded that program with that singer. He's a guy who has spoken on this subject, has written about this subject. He's a guy who is living it. And the fact that the state of Kentucky is fortunate enough to be able to get him to do this job, we should be grateful. How do I think he's going to be able to fix this? By coming in with his knowledge and his experience, his leadership expertise. He's a guy who's led at high levels with huge budgets and has understood how to work in complicated situations. He's a former Navy rescue diver. He was one of the guys that got dropped out of helicopters into stormy seas to fish fishermen out of 40-foot waves. This is a guy who brings a ton of life experience and a never quit attitude. He's a guy who cares about this with a passion. This is why he's willing to come make less money and work on behalf of the people of Kentucky. Because straight up, this is a guy who wants to see this fixed. He will work with me to make this the gold standard for America. The foster care and adoption system does not work well anywhere in America. It needs to be fixed everywhere. We're going to fix it in Kentucky to the best degree possible, and it will be the gold standard for others. He has already started, even though he's not on board yet, meeting with constituencies, meeting with people in DCBS, meeting with people in and outside of state government. He's a man who's already very well known in adoption circles. He's already reaching out to and meeting with all of these outside organizations, the Casey Family Foundation and the Dave Thomas Foundation, Focus on the Family and Save the Children, and all these other organizations that want to come alongside and help us. He's already starting dialogue with all these folks. He's a planner. He's somebody that will detail. He's not going to work inside of DCBS or CHFS. He will work directly for my office, and he will be known to every one of these people. He's going to work directly with our legislature because we have good people like David Mead, who's chairing in our House, and then his adoptive parent himself, Representative Mead, at the request of Speaker Hoover, has put together a group that is focusing on this issue in our state legislature. Dan Dumas will work directly with them to take their ideas and to help implement them and connect them to all these outside groups with all the millions and billions of dollars they're willing to help focus on helping us fix this. Dan is going to be the person who ties all that together. He will be the connector. And I am so excited that he's coming on board. He'll be starting in the middle of June 19th to be exact, is when he'll come aboard. And I hope that in very short measure we start to see a profound difference. I'm confident that we will. I thank you for that question. I thank you for all the questions. And for those that we did not have a chance to get to, we will get back to you indirectly, not in this process, but please stay tuned. Share this information with others. We are the solution. We are. Each one of us. We are Kentucky. This is who we are. So if we can step up, and for those of you in the faith-based community, you church leaders, you pastors, step up. Step up and be bold. Get engaged. There are 3 things you can do. You can call 1-800-232-KIDS, 1-800-232-KIDS. You can also go to, I'm going to try to remember these. I'm live here. It's adopt.ky.gov, I believe. Does that sound right? I've got someone off camera here that I'm looking to. Let me look at these. I want to make sure I give you the right information here. Yeah, adopt.ky.gov is a website. That's where you can get more information. Adopt.ky.gov or call 1-800-232-KIDS. You can also send us an email with ideas, thoughts, questions to openhearts@ky.gov. It's an email address, openhearts@ky.gov. Open your hearts, open your homes. Let's show America how Kentucky takes care of its children. Thank you, and God bless you.